Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to ACEcast Nation. On the channel we've got interviews, podcasts, series and content on various subjects including mental health, football, serial killers, films, TV, conspiracy theories, writing, music, wrestling and more. All our shows are available in video format at youtube.com/ACEpodcastNation or audio at the usual podcasting platforms. Today's show is something a little bit different, something a little bit special for me personally, because instead of the usual format, we're having episode 6 in our popular series, Unscripted and Uncensored. It's a mini version as my guest is very busy as he prepares to go on tour, whilst also doing lots of press and interviews in preparation. So in these unscripted and uncensored shows, there's no script by me. It's completely unedited, uncensored. We just get some talking points or some subject questions sent in by you guys, the viewers and listeners, to Ace Podcast Nation, to our our email, Twitter or Facebook page. This should be a lot of fun. My guest today is an indie icon. He's the lead singer of Shed 7. Shed 7 were a huge indie band that formed in York in the 1990s, true icons of the 1990s Britpop. Joining me today is the lead singer of Shed 7, Witter. Welcome, Rick. How are you, mate?
Hello, sorry, you alright?
Yeah, looking forward to this. So obviously the layout of these unscripted and uncensored shows is generally the viewers and the listeners of Ace Podcast Nation send in the questions and the topics. So we're going to do a mini version today.
I dread to think what's coming next.
Yeah, they've been quite kind to you.
That's good news.
Some of my previous guests for these shows haven't been as lucky, I got to say.
Right.
So you've been quite fortunate. I think a lot of people are just asking kind of about music and stuff, so got away with it, I think. But
I think we've dodged the bullet now, haven't we?
Well, we'll soon see, I suppose. So, like I say, I appreciate you fitting me in because I know you've been doing a lot of interviews recently with like Radio X and the Chris Boyle Show and BBC Radio and many others as you get ready for Shed 7.
Yes, it's the wheels are starting to turn. Obviously, we go on tour. We start Thursday, the 21st. So, yes, it's all it's a necessity, really. Obviously, we're doing quite a big tour, so it's just making as many people aware as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think James from the Oasis podcast said that you don't tour every year. You kind of say, is it every 2 years or something like that? I think he said.
Yeah, we do. As a rule, we tour Christmas every other year, really, and then now that's kind of spreading out more into November as well. It's got its own little hashtag now. It's called Shedcember. Which I believe somebody just coined, one of our fans coined it quite a few years ago. It's become its own little monster, but it's now actually becoming Shedvember as well. But yeah, we generally do that every other year. Because I think it's quite important, really, not to have too much overkill. You know what I mean? I think if we did do it every year, people would then have the opportunity to say, well, I went last year, I won't bother this year, I'll go next year. And then, looking at it logically, the chances are you might end up playing slightly smaller venues, it doesn't look as good. So I think having that year off really helps. And plus it's, it keeps everyone on the toes. So usually when we don't do the Christmas tour, we find ourselves doing some festivals, which we're just currently booking in for next year now. So it's all good.
Yeah, and I guess by leaving it like every other year, it makes it special, doesn't it? Obviously, people will cry it out for you to reform when you split up for, I suppose, it's only a brief period, really, in the grand scheme of things. So you're playing Cardiff, actually, on my day before my son's birthday, which is my hometown. So I think I'm going to try and get tickets for his birthday. I'm not sure, 14-year-old, whether he'll kind of be familiar with your work, but I might drag him along nevertheless.
Yeah, and it's funny actually because lots of people tend to do that these days. Increasingly at our gigs we're seeing more and more youth there and to be fair, a lot of them look like they're really enjoying it and singing along. So as you've just said, you're going to drag him along, but a lot of these parents obviously listen to Shed 7 at home and the kids are kind of absorbing it really, which is great because it does mean that we'll just continue doing it. And if there's new generations of people coming and loving it, then, it only means there's more room for us to continue doing this, really.
Yeah, I suppose it's the thing with anything really in TV, football, you need the younger fans to come as the old fans get older, I suppose, and you always want new fans. Um, I just want him to listen to some decent music, to be honest, but that's just me. So yeah, I know it said the Twang is supporting you. Are they supporting you every night for the tour?
Yes, they're out for the whole lot with us. Yes, that should be good fun. It's we invited the guys to come and have happily said that they'd do it with us. So, it's always quite good fun if you get along with other bands because it's an intense period of time spent with other people. It's difficult enough being so intense with your own bandmates. So it's always nice to know that you're going to go out with a good set of lads or ladies and, just have a bit of a party, really. That's essentially what this is going to be. It's going to be one long Christmas party for like a 23-day tour. So yeah, it should hopefully, fingers crossed, all run very smoothly and then do the business.
Yeah, I guess like I was thinking about it earlier. The 90s they're a bit of a blur for me, and I wasn't in a rock band, and I've heard you say before that the 90s were all a bit of a blur. Do you still kind of, when you're doing the tour in December now, will you party like you used to in the 90s, or is it a bit more?
Well, yeah.
Should we say?
Yes, I think now that we're kind of mid to late 40s, I think obviously you have to listen to your body a little bit more. And it's weird with us because the nature of what we do, the fact that we do it every other year, means that there is a lot of downtime in respect to performing. So, it's what we've done is we've been rehearsing on a Wednesday evening since the beginning of September, just so that we're match fit and we kind of remember the songs. But it gets to the point where that's just so boring because we've played those songs so many times. You just need the audience to bounce off. But when we're rehearsing, we're not kind of putting a show on. We're just stood there playing the songs, remembering them. So, I'm sure after about 4 gigs of moving around on the stage the way I do, the body will suddenly say, "What are you doing?" And then it's just kind of getting over that and getting into a kind of routine with it. But yeah, I guess maybe the weekend gigs is more time to let your hair down a little bit, but it's difficult in the respect that, you could play Blackburn on a Tuesday night and then be travelling up to Aberdeen, which is exactly what we're doing. So we'll find ourselves in service stations halfway up to Scotland at 4 a.m. And that's where it can get quite hard because it is tiring in that respect. So you just have to hit the brandy and get over it.
Yeah, I can imagine that's the less glamorous part of being in a band, I guess, and touring is the travelling between cities and the early morning services and whatnot.
Yeah, and also the kind of hanging around and waiting. There's an awful lot of that. Just for that 1.5 hours performance, there's an awful lot of hanging around. But then it's the nature of the job. I'm not moaning about it. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I got to say, I've always thought that one of the things that I always feel like I admire in particularly like rock and roll or rock bands is performing gigs when you've got to really, like, if you've been up the night before with no sleep and you've been drinking and you've got a hangover, and I often think got to have a lot of power.
Well, listen, I think at the end of the day, people have kindly put their hands in the pockets and paid money out of their hard-earned life to buy a ticket to come see us. So it's very important that you do put on a good show. So, that's not good enough if you can't do that because you're hungover from the night before. So we pride ourselves really on making 100% effort at gigs, really, because I think it's the biggest buzz in the world when people leave the gig at the end discussing how good it was, and we have become a little bit renowned for becoming quite a good live band in the respect that we put on a bit of a show, and we've been doing it long enough to know when a gig is a bit below par, and it's always very frustrating. But it's funny because as a band, with 5 of us, one particular night I might come off stage thinking that wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be, but then Paul, the guitarist, might say it was the best gig he's ever done. So, it's all in your own head at the end of the day. Anyway, as long as we play well, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I think it's what the audience come away feeling. And like you say, there's nothing quite like that feeling of going to a gig and coming away and just thinking, wow, and kind of being blown away and leaving the venue with your ears ringing and you're kind of just in awe of what you've just witnessed.
Yeah, totally that. And that, to be honest, that's why when we were 11 and 12 years old, we decided to learn instruments, because we wanted to show off and play in front of people, and that's never changed. We're still like that now. As a 46-year-old, I'm still like that now. I just like showing off.
Okay, so let's get into some of these questions which people have sent in. So we've got the wildest rock and roll story, or what rock and roll story or incident that you've ever witnessed firsthand.
Oh wow. There's a few of those, but I'm not so sure whether I really want to answer that, because it'll come back to bite me on the arse. I mean, to be honest, again, I always say the 90s were pretty rock and roll, really, but it's difficult to really remember. It's funny because I'll maybe go out with friends every now and again, and we'll start reminiscing, and my friends will go, do you remember that gig where that happened? And I honestly won't remember it. And it's quite frustrating, really. But I've always kind of had a bit of a bad memory anyway. But I'm going to have to glaze over that one, because a lot of these stories probably don't really involve me as such, and I wouldn't want to put anybody else on the spot.
No.
I'll save that for the book.
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand that completely. As I said, these questions are not from me, so they can be on it.
Well, it's a very boring answer. Apologies to whoever asked me that, but it's a very boring answer. But if I ever bump into whoever asked that question and they want to ask me it again privately, I'll have a chat with them.
Funny enough, he asked, he's a regular listener, so he said he'd asked another question. He asked, who's the biggest twat you ever met in the music industry? Again, kind of puts you on the spot a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, there always is twats. You know what I mean? There always is. We can pride ourselves on being quite normal and interested in things. But you're always going to bump into people who are totally at their own arse. But, as a rule, these people tend to kind of fall by the wayside because they get the first flush of fame and think that they're the best thing in the world ever. And, unless you kind of behave in a certain way, it can sometimes come back and bite you on your arse. I mean, obviously Liam Gallagher proves that wrong because he can do and say exactly what he wants and gets away with it every single time. And fair play to him for that, I mean, he was rock and roll in that respect. But, you just see daft things. I can't remember who this woman was. I'll have to do a bit of research actually and try and find out who this woman was. But I remember playing a festival somewhere in London once, and it was one of these kind of radio festivals. So it had a mixture of different style of acts. And we were playing in the afternoon. This is way back in the 90s. And I remember this woman singing, I can't remember who she was. She was pacing up and down backstage outside, doing a vocal warm-up routine because she's about to go on stage, so she's making a big point of doing it as loud as she possibly could, la 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 la. And then she went on stage and mimed. And it's like, well, what are you doing? It's a bit kind of like me, look at me. You know what I mean? And that's fair enough when you're on the stage doing it, but at least go and sing properly. So, I wouldn't associate her with being a twat as such, but it's kind of grow up a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of weird behaviour, that, isn't it? To do a vocal warm-up and then go and mime.
Yeah, you couldn't make it up, could you?
No, it's almost like, right, everyone look at me, I'm going on stage, I'm going to sing, and then go.
Yeah, well, as I said at the beginning of this, you're always going to bump into twats, but, you just learn over the space of years just to kind of stay out of the way. Life's too short. So if people want to act like twats, just go and act like a twat, but just stay away from me while you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, do you keep your, over the years, have you kept, your circle of friends generally quite close-knit and stuff? So,
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And it's funny regarding the 90s because, there was a lot of bands doing a lot of promotion for various reasons. And at the time, because we live in York, we'd get caught up in that to an extent, but we'd always have that get out where we can just come home to York and get away from it. So it was nice to be able to dip our toes in. But, it was almost like a competition in the 90s. There was an awful lot of bands checking out what other bands were doing, how well they were doing. So it was a kind of a bit of an odd atmosphere at times. But I'm noticing now the bands that are still going from the 90s that we bump into from time to time, everybody has just grown up a bit, and I think everybody realises how lucky they were to be caught up in such a big music scene. And I think with the benefit of hindsight and the fact that we're still actually doing stuff, means that everyone's just a little bit more chilled out about it and appreciates the lifestyle and the fact that people are still interested in hearing them. So it's a lot better now than it was then in the respect of people, a bit of camaraderie,
Yeah, of course. I mean, it was amazing, time for a successful indie band in the 90s because you had Oasis and the Stone Roses and Blur and yourselves, and there was so many really successful sort of indie bands and rock bands at that time. But equally, I always thought the Shed 7 were a little unlucky that they came out at the same sort of time as Oasis and Blur and things like that. So perhaps you guys didn't get the appreciation that you would have got, if they weren't around. But you had plenty of success. Let's be fair.
Yeah, well, then was the breaks. I mean, I think certainly at a certain point in the 90s, it was how many magazines you can sell and how many covers you can get on. That was a big part of it, really, and that's massively changed now. But, because we weren't scrapping all the time, and because we weren't saying what drugs we were doing all the time, it meant that we were less cover story friendly in that respect. So, yeah, I mean, we had our moments, but, the fact that we're still here doing it and we still attract a good crowd and people come to our gigs and they just sing their hearts out and I'd much rather have it that way rather than burn out quick and have a 5 minutes of fame kind of scenario. This is our job. It's our job. It's our career, and we love doing it. So again, I feel very kind of lucky that we still are here doing this because we just love performing. We just love getting out there and showing off, as I said.
Do you think that the break where you broke up and then you got back together a few years later, do you think that kind of helped you in your overall outlook on it?
Yeah, maybe in hindsight, yes, because I kind of regretted actually splitting up when we did. I think it was a bit rash, but I do also now think, looking back, that it was probably an important thing to do at the time because it just gave everyone a little bit of a break. We kind of reformed in 2007 just simply because we missed playing live and we had no idea where it would take us. We just wanted to do some gigs. So we just put a few gigs on at the end of 2007 in December. I think there's maybe 6 gigs booked in and put them on sale just thinking, right, well, whatever happens, happens. We'll just go out and we'll just play our instruments and sing these old songs from the 90s that we used to do. And the reaction was incredible. We had to upgrade venues, we had to add extra gigs. I think it turned into like a 20-day tour in the end. And that was, at that point, it was when I kind of looking out, seeing all of these people singing every word. It kind of made me realise that what we did do in the 90s was actually important and special to people. It wasn't just a throwaway thing. And here we are now in 2019. This is like 12 years since then, and we're playing even bigger venues, playing the same songs. It's a nice justification for us because we've got a lot of work in the 90s, and still do now. We had an album out 2 years ago that did really well. It went top 10, and to a lot of people, it's one of the best albums I've ever written. It's great to still be caught up in it.
Actually, I was going to ask you about kind of new material? Have you got many, many songs written and ready to sort of be released at some point?
No.
No? Are you still...
The simple answer to that. To be honest, as I say, we had this album out a couple of years ago, and it was a strange one because we weren't really even considering doing anything new. We were quite happy caught in that treadmill of playing our old songs. But obviously a lot of fans over the years, because we've been reformed 10 years when this album came out, and we were just playing our old stuff. So obviously a lot of fans are going, will you ever write anything new? And for a long time there was just not enough hours in the day to consider getting together and sitting down and writing new material. But I do seem to remember about 4 or 5 years ago, Paul, the guitarist, came up with a guitar riff for a song called Nothing to Live Down, which was on the album. And it was just him mucking about in the rehearsal room. We were actually rehearsing to do a gig, and he just came up with this riff that got my ears pricked up, and the next minute I'm on my hands and knees on the rehearsal room floor, scribbling out melodies and lyrics. And it turned into that song, and we kind of looked at each other and thought, wow, where did that come from? That wasn't planned. So because we kind of got a bit of a buzz for that, we spent maybe a year and a little bit just writing some new ideas down without telling anyone, so there was no pressure, there was no kind of, where is it, when can we hear it? We didn't tell anybody. And then after about a year and a half, we had kind of like 20 songs that we thought were worthy for people to hear. So it was kind of a bit of an accident, to be honest, writing that new material. And I'm so pleased we did it, because it's great. But, suddenly, yes, as you've rightly asked, when's the next new stuff? But we're not kind of that band, we'll do it when we're good and ready, and people have waited 16 years in between album releases for something new off us. So if they can wait that long and be happy with what they've heard, then if it takes another 8 years to do another one, then so be it. We've got an awful lot of songs from the past that people really want to hear, and then there's the fans who bought the new album that really want to hear some of that. So we're in a good spot right now. So I just don't see the point of writing new stuff just to keep the momentum going, because unless it's as good as the last song we wrote, there's no point in doing it. So when we're at a stage where we're all happy with ourselves to meet up and start the process again, who knows when that'll be? It could be tomorrow, it could be in 5 years, who knows?
Yeah, cool. That's good, and I mean, you've got so many, so many good, amazing big songs which people, like you say, know all the lyrics to, sing along to at gigs, and the people still want to watch you guys play. So
so we're in a healthy position, really, which is great.
So if I could just ask you a couple of quick few more questions, which I got sent in before we finish off, because I know you're a busy man. So, what sort of music do you generally listen to? Favourite band, etc.
Well, I like a lot of different stuff. I really, if I get the time, I like to do a lot of browsing on various different sites online. Because if you discover something, it gives you kind of options, suggests other things that you might like because you're listening to this. So I can discover lots of new stuff. I mean, I like straight up indie, really, but then I'm quite a big fan of the Australian kind of site scene. I like that King Gizzard and the Witter. They're a good band, but they release an awful lot of music. It's quite full on. I don't know how they managed to do that. There's just loads of really good stuff out there, and it's nice to be able to choose whether or not you listen to an old Pixies album for a change, or you stick to Stone Roses' first album on again, or this surge of new, good, underground indie bands. And I think indie has become that again, because indie in the 90s was very mainstream. We were all going in the charts, we were all on kids' telly programs, and it's kind of reverted back to how indie started, which is a bit underground and a bit cool and a bit kind of in the know, so to speak. Because I remember being at school and liking indie bands, and the majority of the kids in your class had no idea what these bands were because they're into Bros or Madonna, and you're saying, oh God, I've got that first Soup Dragons album before they went all Britpoppy themselves or Manchestery. and he'd been looked upon as being a bit of a weirdo for like his strange music, but I kind of got off on that. I thought that was a bit of a buzz.
Yeah, it was always good. Like I was the same. I was more into kind of like a band than while everyone else was into the kind of the cheesy pop, as it were.
Yeah.
So, last question for you then. What are some of your ambitions left in terms of your musical career or your career generally? What are you looking to do now?
Well, as I touched upon earlier, there is always the option to do new stuff, and I'm sure at some point we definitely will. But I think I'm quite happy with where I'm at right now. There's nothing major that I'm thinking, I've got to do that before I die. I think I'm always kind of just taking life as it comes, really, and meet head on anything that I'm presented with. So, I could say, I'd love to start acting or something like that, but, if the opportunity came along and I liked it, then I'd maybe dip my toes in, but there's nothing major. I think short term, we're just going to get on this tour, and hopefully it'll just be absolutely brilliant, and then we'll just take next year as it comes, to be honest.
Indeed. I'll put links up to for tickets and everything in the description for the episode, and and you've got to write a book as well. Got to do that.
Yeah, I tell all. But what I'll have to do before I write that book is get together with some friends first and be told exactly what happened.
Yeah, and then change the names of everyone so you don't.
Yes, exactly that. Yes.
Thank you very much for your time, mate. I really appreciate it. And
no worries. Thank you, mate.
Welcome to come back on any time once you're toured.
That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. And I'll see you in Cardiff.
Indeed. And then maybe we could do a longer show once your tour's done and dusted and stuff, and Christmas is out of the way. And
yes, great stuff. Good man.
Ask you some weirder questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you, mate. Cheers.
Thank you, mate.
Good man.
Guys, you can find links to purchase tickets to Shed 7's tour around the UK in the episode description below. You can also follow the band at Shed 7 on Twitter, plus follow Rick on Twitter, which is at RickTW1TTER. Follow us on Twitter at ACEcast_nation, or you can go to our Facebook page, drop a like and follow. It's facebook.com/ACEcastnation. Most of all, the best way to support our shows, help us grow, is by subscribing to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ACEpodcastnation, or download the audio versions of our shows at Apple Pod, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, and many other podcast platforms. The best way to help us find new eyes and ears is by leaving comments, sharing our shows and our social media posts. If you really want to help us and go that extra mile, then please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and all the other podcasting sites, because that will help us find new people. Thanks again to Rick for finding the time to chat to me from his busy schedule. Hopefully we can get him on for a full-length unscripted, uncensored show in the future once he's finished touring. In the meantime, guys, tell us who you'd like to see on the next episode of Unscripted and Uncensored, and I'll see you guys for the next episode. Cheers.